Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Courtney Battle, and I am the Executive Director of Housing and on behalf of our team, I'm truly excited to welcome you to this conversation about what we believe are transformative opportunities for communities across Baltimore. So first, I'd like to thank our partners, the Archdiocese of Baltimore, Enterprise, and the Community Development Network for their leadership and collaboration in bringing this session together. We truly could not have done it without you, and so want to extend our gratitude. What we're going to hear today reflects months. We actually started talking about this last year. So it reflects months of thoughtful work and shared commitment to ensuring that underutilized assets can be repositioned in ways that serve community needs, and particularly the urgent need for affordable housing. At Housing and our role is often to help align stakeholders with opportunities and create the connective tissue that turns ideas into impact. And today is exactly that kind of moment. Across Baltimore, as in many cities, demographic shifts have changed the landscape. And as the population has declined, so too has the need for the number of parish facilities originally built to serve families decades ago. The Archdiocese is responding proactively and thoughtfully, not simply by selling those properties, but by asking a bigger question of how those assets can continue to serve the community for generations to come. And that question is why we're here. Faith-based institutions have long played a stabilizing role in neighborhoods, and increasingly we're seeing powerful examples across the country where these properties are being reimagined as affordable housing, mixed-use developments, community hubs, and catalytic investments that honor the history of the site while meeting today's needs. So today you'll get a first look at 12 sites across the Archdiocese, insight into Baltimore's development and policy landscape, a discussion of financing tools and resources, examples of successful faith-based redevelopment, and importantly, space for dialogue. This is not a passive webinar, it's an invitation for all of you, whether you're a developer, capital partner, government leader, in philanthropy or community stakeholder to really think creatively and to move quickly. The Archdiocese has made clear that there is urgency in ensuring these properties are stewarded well, and the window for alignment is now. Baltimore's housing challenges are real, but so are the opportunities. And when mission-driven institutions, thoughtful developers, aligned capital, and supportive policy come together, we can produce housing that is not only financially viable, but deeply community-centered. We're really grateful that you're at the table today, and we hope that this conversation sparks ideas, partnerships, and most importantly, next steps. So, with that, I will turn it over to Nolan McCoy, who is the Director of Facilities and Real Estate with the Archdiocese of Baltimore. And thank you again for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nolan McCoy. I'm with the Archdiocese of Baltimore. My coworker, John McSherry, is our Director of Real Estate. And today we're going to talk about a lot of properties that we have in the city of Baltimore and the surrounding Baltimore County. Back in early 2021, Archbishop Lori started a process of engagement with the wider Catholic Church, where he invited all of the parishioners and stakeholders to envision what our church should look like going forward into the future. Back in the early part of the century, in the 1930s, 1940s, the Catholic Church built up quite a large infrastructure that could handle approximately 250,000 Catholics attending Mass in the city on any given weekend. And as time went by and people moved out to the county, the amount of infrastructure remained in place, and we built a lot of churches in the areas where people migrated to. And that has left us with a large built infrastructure in Baltimore City and the surrounding county that was built, for the faithful, but now those buildings are sitting idle or they're available for sacramental events, but they're not frequently used. And we'd like to engage in a process with the affordable housing and the development community to see how these buildings could both most appropriately be put back into use for the benefit of the community. Housing is certainly one of those many uses, but community centers, gymnasiums, classrooms, anything that would have a broader context for the use of the community. And so after we hear from some of our other participants, Patrick Jordan, Dearden Harrison, David Bowers, Watson Harris Bruce, and we'll come back and go through the list of properties that we have available. We're highlighting 12 properties, and we're prepared to just provide a brief abstract on that and answer any questions that you have. And I will flip it back off to you then, Courtney, to move us on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Jordan with Heron Community Development. Very excited to be with you today. Really appreciate Housing and the Archdiocese for conducting this webinar. Excited to be kind of co-presenting with Dean about some of what we've seen around what types of projects might be relevant. I think my role is to highlight some themes and examples that might relate to opportunities in Baltimore. Most of my experience with development on faith-owned property began with work in partnership with Enterprise on their faith-based development initiative program. I've had the opportunity to train about 180 houses of worship over the past 5 years on how to use church-owned property for affordable housing and community facilities in joint venture partnerships. But we've also seen that there's a lot of creativity on repurposing of church property for similar activities around housing, around community facility needs. And a lot of that work is happening in cities similar to Baltimore, where that shift in demographics that Nolan mentioned might make a property available for adaptive reuse because of change in demographics. And honestly, because of some positives in our communities around integration and not necessarily needing three Catholic churches within a couple of block radius that might traditionally have been for a Polish Catholic community or an Irish Catholic community or a Black Catholic community. So part of this really is about kind of coming together, but also making some important ideas around what can faith-owned land do to advance community priority. A presumption that we've got is that community is in a strong position to answer that. So as you as developers are thinking about use of this property, also thinking about how community empowerment, especially in some of our underloved neighborhoods, can help advance both the work of that community and honestly the mission that was this building that you're working in alignment with its former life as a church. We've got a couple of slides that I think highlight this. The one that is titled Project Trends. Thank you. So just some examples we're going to touch on kind of fit within these themes around kind of creative reuse of space, around addressing local needs and building holistic communities, and even around some of the emerging sources of funding that might support work like this. So just to highlight some of these, I think the next slide has a couple examples. They're very diverse, right? So when we think about kind of repurposing a church into housing, we can see an example on the left from Boston, German Trinity Catholic Church, a handful of years ago, was converted not into affordable housing, but into luxury condos. 33 luxury condos in this church. They all sell. The smallest one sells for more than $1 million. The one on the market currently, a 3-bedroom unit, is on for more than $4 million. That contrasts with a project in Detroit, Transfiguration Place Apartments, which I think was Detroit's second project within kind of its portfolio to do affordable housing. It's a 20-unit permanent supportive housing project that was done with 4% LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits. That was a more modest $7 million budget for adaptive reuse. It supports folks around 30% of the median income, which in Detroit is folks making under $30,000. Those are some examples of churches into housing. On the next slide, we've got some examples of schools into housing. So with some of that positive response that the Detroit community had, because to be honest, that Boston project was pretty controversial. The Detroit project was less so. And the parish, St. Mary of Redford, was the third parish in Detroit's archdiocese to undergo a transition from a school property or a church property into affordable housing. That property had been on the market for about 20 years. And it ended up being a pretty neat partnership between the city, the state, the parish having involvement, the developer, and other funders. It is currently under construction. It's hopefully going to be delivered next year. It's a $30 million project for 61 units focused on, again, deeply affordable studios, one bedrooms and two bedrooms. On the next slide, you'll see that we even have kind of creative use of what used to be a parking lot. So in Portland, Oregon, Child's House is a $6 million project, about 27 units, again, of kind of permanently supportive housing that matched what the Catholic Charities affiliate in Oregon was doing to support residents. It's trauma-informed design that works to support folks who've been through challenges in their life and helps to connect them to resources around mental health and counseling and thinking about financial empowerment and again transitioning out of housing like this into something different. The next slide just highlights the fact that not only can we do affordable rental, but there are some groups that are looking at affordable home ownership. Group out of Connecticut called Cornerstone Bridge has a couple projects on either church parking lots or former church land where they're focused on mixed income affordable condominium. One of their goals is around community wealth building. Um, so thinking about kind of a land trust model with deed restrictions, uh, not having deed restrictions allowing for more wealth creation. Another aspect for Cornerstone Bridge is really focusing on net zero and high energy efficiency. Um, on the next slide, we can also see that there are good examples even in Baltimore right now. There's a partnership between Project Place and Beacon Communities at the former St. Joseph's Monastery in Irvington. It's a large project. It's a $45 million project with about 90 housing units, about 34 temporary housing units, and 56 permanent supportive housing units, also slated for completion next year. So even within Baltimore, already seeing kind of active ideas around adaptive reuse. And then on the next slide is our last project to highlight, also from Baltimore. Really great parish in Northwest St. Ambrose has a school building that's been closed for about 12 years. And they're going through a community planning process thinking about what that school building could be. There's been a lot of progress in Park Heights, um, a lot of housing pipeline that has come online recently and is still underway. A great senior project right up the street, about 2 blocks from here, that NHP had done. A very neat project that Dominion Real Estate has coming across the street with a tax credit project. But what's lacking in this portion of Park Heights is some community facility space. So the parish is actively engaged with the community, thinking about what's um, maybe something that could be uplifting for this community, um, given that it's got what used to be its gym and kind of auditorium. It's got about a dozen classrooms. It's got a cafeteria and a kitchen that has some brand new equipment from right before they closed. So what could this space be? They're engaging both in due diligence and understanding what the cost might be to convert some of this use, but also how it could be supportive of what the neighborhood and community would like to see moving forward. So that's some examples on projects. The next slide just has a quick highlight of the fact that there's also some folks thinking about funding broadly. I think we're excited to have Watch and talk about local funding, but there are some kind of church-based funding opportunities that have come online recently. Just two quick examples. Convivium is kind of a project-based support looking at crowdsourcing capital for projects on faith-owned land. And then another group, Visier Land Trust, has been trying to work with groups that want to do a sale and lease back of faith and institutional land, where you may sell the property into a real estate investment trust and then be able to lease it back for them at a more modest cost, but be able to keep it within the real estate investment trust as a faith-owned property. So those were just some highlights. I want to hand it over to Dean to talk about some of his work and his experience in Baltimore.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Greatly appreciated, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to keep it very simple. I think Patrick's done a great job of giving a great overview, And I've worked a lot with enterprise in the past on some of these faith-based development consulting uh, opportunities to work with some of the churches here in Baltimore and a few in Washington, D.C. as well. But I think, Patrick, you sort of laid out sort of the spectrum of what's possible. And I think in our area, folks should more sort of focus their attention on the models that you shared in Detroit and obviously the one in Irvington here in Baltimore. Those are the things I believe that really have some traction as we look over the midterm, short and midterm, long sort of schedule, looking out at what's possible here in Baltimore, working with the Archdiocese. So, with that, we can move to the next group and dive in as we see fit.
Great, Dean. Thanks so much, Dean and Patrick. Appreciate you all with it. This is David Bowers. I'm with Enterprise Community Partners. Pleased to be joined on this panel conversation by Watch and Bruce, who's leads the Baltimore Community Lending, and Dean will be coming back as well to join us for this part of the conversation. For those of you all who are attending who may have interest in pursuing opportunities that you'll hear about a little bit later from Nolan and John. We wanted to prime the pump just a little bit. Some of you all may be very aware, but others maybe not as much. And so to talk just a little bit about what the financing environment is like for those who may be contemplating pursuing this. So just a few questions here, and then we'll get over to the panel with the presentation from Nolan and John. So uh, Dean, let me start with you, and then I'll go to Watchin next.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about, and again, for folks who are in the audience, so Watchin is a financier, right? She's the money. She's the money on this call,
That's
right?
right.
And Dean wearing a developer and development consultant, so he's wearing multiple hats. So Dean, why don't we
Mhm.
start with you? What is
Sure.
the financing environment now for developers who are seeking to develop either housing and or community serving facilities in Baltimore specifically? Can you talk a little bit about that? We'll start with you, Dean.
I would say it is challenging. That would be the right way to frame the answer to that question. But with that challenge and challenging environment, I think city and state officials and leadership are attuned to that challenge and are now putting things in place that can support development, whether it be private, public, or public-private partnerships that really can focus energy and attention and resources behind whether it be housing development and or commercial development or community development. So even though it's a challenging environment right now in general, I think specifically in the Baltimore and the Maryland region, we've got leadership in place who supports what needs to happen to focus on community development, specifically around vacant assets and assets that you heard described earlier by Nolan and what they're dealing with now in the Archdiocese and how to transform those vacant and sort of underused facilities into productive assets for the communities they serve. So that would be my sort of answer to that question, David.
Sure. Thanks, Dean.
Yes.
Appreciate that. And watching as I come to you with that same question, reminding folks, Dean alluded to it, what Nolan referred to earlier, that we will, the diocese has a number of properties, vacants. Many are in the city, some are in Baltimore County. You'll hear more about that. And the great presentation by Patrick on the various approaches that folks have taken. We've seen both mixed use as well as just housing or just community serving facilities. So hoping that as people go through today listening, they'll listen with kind of open ears and eyes about what's needed in community and what's possible in terms of development. So, watching from your standpoint and on from the financing standpoint, what would you say the environment is like for developing housing or facilities in the Baltimore City, Baltimore County region?
Well, first, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. Well, going back to your question, David, it depends on who you are asking and who you are talking to. So the answer would be different based on who is answering that question. But with every challenge, there's opportunities. I think this current environment have opportunities for developers that want to um, develop affordable housing, including special needs housing, and targeting those who are earning below 80% of that be there is you what
Watching, we may have a little bit of an issue, I think, on the audio. I'm not sure if it's just me, but little audio. We might ask you to try just for a second. Yeah, we're getting some thumbs up. Maybe if you go, I hate to do this, but to ask you to go off camera and let's see if that makes a difference just in terms of sound, just for a second. Let's see
okay.
what happens.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's clear
Okay,
now.
great, great. I'm sorry, but
Not a
anyway,
problem.
I will repeat what I said. The question is the financing environment. What I said is it depends on who you are asking because it varies. There's opportunities and challenges. There are a lot of resources out there. You just have to know what's the appetite of the banks or CDFIs, all the various funding sources in both public and private. Going back to the type of housing or type of opportunity, asset size, I know there are a lot of banks that may not be ready for certain asset class, but it depends on what part of the bank you are talking to. Most commercial banks have community development or community banking development or divisions that focus on community economic development. And they will have more appetite with working with developers to develop housing. For CDFIs or nationally, even in this region, there's opportunities for us to work with developers that are doing readapted reuse of facilities like churches to different use for affordable housing community facilities because there are other sources both from the state and the local government that will match those funding sources and also Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta. I've worked with Federal Home Loan Bank in Boston, and we did a lot of special needs or readapted use from churches to supportive housing and affordable housing across New England. And I'm sure that can happen too. We just need to talk to the right person who is aware of these resources. Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta is in this region, and they have various resources for housing and economic development projects, but working through members. And our CDFI is a member of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, plus a lot of the commercial banks and community banks. So that's different resources. You just have to know who to talk to in those institutions that are aware of the different type of asset size of products and services.
That's great. Watch and appreciate that. Very helpful. And Dean, let me ask you to pick up on where Watson just left off.
Sure.
Again, because you've worn both hats, wear both hats, both as a consultant to others who are seeking to do work and as a developer yourself.
Yes, sir.
Let's drill a little bit into that in terms of where to go at the banks, the CDFIs that are kind of active in the Baltimore region, Federal Home
Hmm.
Loan Bank, and the like. When you're someone who's on this call who may be thinking, hey, I want to pursue potentially one of these, explore it, you know that there's going to be a range of financing they'll need, right? The acquisition,
Yes.
the pre-development, et cetera. Talk a little bit about if there's any specificity of like places, people, and or specific tools that you have found to be helpful in trying to put the capital stack together that'll be necessary to make one of these projects a reality.
Sure, David. I'll try and start from the 30,000 foot level and sort of go down. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think the state and the city, particularly the state DHCD and city DHCD and various sort of tentacles that go out from those agencies, are focused on being very helpful in trying to redevelop areas within the city and the surrounding areas that have vacant or underutilized assets. They want to energize those assets with some of the programs that they have in place. I think when you sort of drill down further, there are organizations such as the NIF, um, the Neighborhood Investment Fund here in Baltimore, Baltimore Community Lending, which Watson represents, is another resource, and CDFIs of the like. I think some of the foundations have really taken a leadership role in figuring out how to be helpful or how to be more helpful for development entities or public and private partnerships, even if it's a partnership between private development entities and the city or private development entities and the state or other nonprofits. The Gold Secker Foundation has taken a leadership role in really organizing resources and pulling those resources forward for folks. The MCIC organization that came out of, I think, the leadership of the Gold Secker Foundation, working with the state to figure out ways to put together resources for development entities and communities. Those are some of the high level, I think, resources that folks should focus on. But as Watson mentioned earlier, um, CDFIs such as BCL, I think, who have a mission based orientation are places folks should focus. And folks who may be out on the call from the development community can imagine that this is not something you want to take on lightly. If you have a mission focus, then I think this is sort of work for you, but it is not for the faint of heart. And I think you need to be clear about your intentions. Whoever you're working with, you need to sort of clearly outline where you're going to go so that you can be efficient with your time and your resources and be clear about what your outcomes are.
Gene, thanks for that. And Watson, I want to pick up there for you as a lender, your institution as a lender, when folks might approach you, developers who are contemplating one of these projects, how much is it on them to go and pull together all the various aspects of that capital stack? And how much will you and your team, your staff, assist them with relationships that you may have with other lenders or funding sources, whether it's formal outreach on, on with them and or just suggestions? How helpful can a BCL be to folks and other community development lenders in helping folks think through and navigating kind of the maze of different places they need to go to secure financing?
Okay, great. Thanks for asking that question. That's one of the difference between us and a regular commercial bank. Like Dean said, we are a mission-based lender. One of the efforts that we focus on is not just the capital. We provide technical assistance
Yeah.
and capacity building to developers to make sure that they learn about just even putting the structure together, how we're putting the structure together and the financing. We will help you identify other sources, but most importantly, we will participate with other lenders. For example, we closed I think, a couple of years ago on a new market tax credit with a church in Baltimore that redeveloped the sanctuary into a winery, and this was a new market tax credit. We were we did the gap financing for the developer. I think it was with City First out of Washington, D.C.
Mm.
But sometimes we will come in and do mezzanine financing or pre-development or just acquisition or just finance whatever is needed, but we bring a lot of resources. A lot of my staff or team members have excellent experience working with various financial institutions and have the technical knowledge to provide technical assistance to different type of layering financing sources. Even if we cannot finance 100%, we do participation with other lenders. We have done participation with enterprise as well as other national CDFI or NIF, and also with the state agency. And another source that we always tell people is the state of Maryland has bond financing, but these are different requirements. We will work with a developer to identify the best source of capital stack based on the ultimate goal and the type of asset or readaptive use that we want to do. So we bring not just capital, we work with them on providing resources, and we are trusted advisors to all of our clients.
Watching, thanks for that. And I'll just say out loud for about 2 or 3 seconds there, it got a little spotty watching your response right when you mentioned. So I'll just say it. Watching was suggesting that the state also has bond financing that folks can pursue. So I wanted to make sure that came through. And then the
Okay.
rest it was clear watching. So we're good. Thank
So,
you for
David,
that.
if you don't
Yeah, go ahead,
mind,
Dean.
you mind if I jump in real quick?
Yeah,
I just
please
wanted
do.
to mention one other resource, and I was sort of holding back. I'm not trying to make this a commercial for all the folks on the call here, but I do want to mention that from my perspective, this is my personal perspective. I think Enterprise and the group that you represent, David, and the umbrella Enterprise also provides a great resource for a lot of folks who are looking to get into this space. BCL, as Watch and mentioned, I think is very unique in their mission orientation and not only the financial resources that they bring to bear, but also the technical assistance that they bring to bear. And I would just want to highlight from my own development experience and years of relationships with Enterprise that Enterprise also brings that sort of wealth of knowledge and resources. So I think for the folks who might be interested in working in this space, the folks who are actually on the call could provide a great deal of support. So I'll leave it at
Dean,
that.
thank you for that. Appreciate
And I'm
that.
just giving it to you straight, David.
Listen,
That's
we'll
what
make
it
sure to
is.
get Dean, we'll get his lighting adjusted just so it's just right. Make him look real good for that comment. Dean, seriously, thank you. And someone had put in the chat, seriously say thanks to Dean. And Dean raises a point, someone had put in the chat that Baltimore is not necessarily short on resources, but could benefit from more collaboration. So you heard Watching and her
Exactly.
response talking about what BCL offers.
Yes.
Certainly, Enterprise is a player. There are others, both on the community development lending side and in private banks, financial institutions, foundations as well. And so for those on the line, and Dean, I'm going to come back to you to kick this question, then I'll hop to Watching, which is
Okay.
kind of understanding the who and the where to go to. But now is critical for people to be successful if you want to try to move in this space. Let me actually ask you, Dean,
All
for
right.
again, folks who may be on the line contemplating going after one of these properties and or supporting one of the developers who's going after the property, maybe a government entity or a private sector entity. What are some of the key questions that a developer should be asking themselves or someone who may want to invest in a project when they say, oh, I see one of the 13 properties that Nolan and John mentioned, we may want to pursue. Are there, I call it the 3x5 card, right? I'm sure there are 100 questions, but are there three or
Hmm.
four kind of top level questions that
There
ought to
are.
be asked before pursuing?
Yes. I think the number one question that you want to be clear on is your objective. Try and outline clearly what your objective is with either the development entity, your partner, if that's a public partner, if you're forming some kind of public-private partnership, or you're doing it in partnership with the church. Work together to make sure you're clearly outlining what your objective is. If that's housing, what kind of housing, how that's going to look, what the revenue model might look like. If that's some kind of community space, how that's going to look, what the overall sort of economics of that are, so that you're clearly defining what your mission is. and you can structure that mission or translate that mission into a financial story so that as you approach different resource heavy organizations or a private bank, the city or the state, you can tell the story as clearly and efficiently as possible. Because I think as you start out and you lay out what your objective is and what your timing is, and sort of lay out what the budget might look like, those that question as to where you're trying to get to is going to be one of the first things you need to lay out. Secondly, as you have defined that sort of mission or where you're trying to go with it, what is it going to take you from a pre-development point of view, and what that pre-development budget might look like, and where those resources are coming from. If you're going to do that, from your own private funds or the company's funds, or are you going to look to public sources to assist you with that from a grant perspective, or work with the state or the city or a combination thereof to help you get through that pre-development phase, and that pre-development phase helping define or further define what the objective is and what the overall project's going to look like. I think that's one of the things you want to get clear up front. And I think the last piece of it is really shaking the trees before you sort of strike in terms of purchasing a property, about where the resources are and who realistically might be supporting you, so that you have a better sense of how you're going to get to that endpoint before you jump into the water and buying the asset or making some kind of final deal on the asset. So those are some of the things from a very high level I would put out front that you want to get clear on. And I'm sure, there are folks in the development community who are part of this call. They would know, as I said earlier, it is something I think that folks should not take lightly in getting from A to Z, and be clear about your mission that, this is the work you want to take on, and know that it's not taken on lightly. So,
Dean, thanks for that. Appreciate that. And
yeah.
watching let you pick up there from your seat as a financier, you and your team. Are there some key questions that you're going to be asking somebody who comes in and says, "Hey, we're trying to pull this property down. We want to acquire this." Are there two, three, four key questions that you all will be asking them that people really ought to be thinking about even before, as Dean mentioned, kind of as part of that shaking the tree before they strike?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, the first question we will ask them is, what is your mission? Like Dane said, what is the purpose of this readaptive use? First, do you have a community partner? Are you working with the community to make sure they want this type of development in the neighborhood? Because this is a readaptive use, it has to meet certain criteria to get permits.
Mhm.
You want to make sure you have local community involvement. So that's the first thing, and have a plan on what the new use will be. For example, if you are changing a sanctuary to a family life center or hospital or whatever the new use going to be, and or affordable housing, you want to make sure that the community have to buy in and become a major partner of yours. But we have seen people develop projects, come to us with budgets and proposal, and the community is not supporting the project. They have to go back and start. So I think those are all should be the due diligence, working with the community for community buy-in, and let the local or CDC or local community organization be a partner in that development. That's one. Second thing is, before you submit your proposal to any bank or CDFIs, you first want to find out what type of lender are they. Is this strictly commercial banks, or is it a community development financial institution that's mission-based? because for us, we are a mission-based lender, and but we are funded by the federal government, U.S. Department of Treasury. So our focus is on targeting projects that are located in the low to moderate income communities. We do not focus on high income We do mixed income, but it must be located in a LMI area, census tract. So that's the first thing we do. So do your research, talk to someone at the lending institution to find out what's the criteria, because we do have a checklist. And a couple of my team members are on. Randall posted his thing, and some of my loan officers are on. Well, you want to check with them for the checklist. Terms and financing and process. 'Cause it takes time. Doing development, as you know, as developer, is not something, it's not a small business that you can take 30 days to close. It takes time, the process, because you have to come up with your development budget as well as a narrative describing what your project is all about and who you are targeting. You have to do a market research. And most importantly, you want to create a relationship with your lenders because what it boils down to having someone comfortable to know what your project is and willing to work with you to finance, but most importantly, to find other resources if it's not 100% of financing by them. So we talk with people before they submit a project. So you want to ask those questions. And also, we have to manage expectations. It takes time. It will not be a 30 days project, but it's a working relationship you want to have with the lenders. And we offer technical assistance in all of these areas if you need it. So
Watching that is great. That getting the checklist for the terms and conditions, as you mentioned, and the relational aspect. And we'll begin to wrap here, and I'll just give a heads up to our panel to follow with John and Nolan that we're going to kind of land the plane on this panel here with by saying, watch, and I think you gave us a great spot building on what Dean said about you said relationship, and I think that both of you all hit on this piece of, and I think about in Patrick's case studies that he laid out, the importance of the relational, that there's a transactional component to this, but there's also a relational component to this, particularly given the nature of the properties that will be talked about and the histories, and Nolan and John certainly can refer to that. There's so much history that goes into these properties and the buildings, and they exist in a place, in a community. And so, Watch, and really appreciated you saying that. So I hope that all who are listening will be mindful of the importance of relation with community, relation, obviously, with those who may provide investment or financing for the projects that you do, and that you really have opportunity here. And I'll transition now to Nolan and John to saying you have an opportunity to work with a key community stakeholder to continue to look for new ways to have impact for the good in communities in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and the like. So, Watch and Bruce from Baltimore Community Lending, Dean Harrison from Harrison Development, thank you all both very much. And so
David,
now we will
David,
transition over to Triana.
it looks like we have a question before you wrap. It looks like Genevieve.
Oh,
Oh, great. Thank you. David, as usual,
yes,
you're a phenomenal moderator, facilitator, and dean and watch. And thank you so much for your intel.
You're welcome.
My question is related more to the governance and decision-making side from the church organizations. Um, there are many decision makers at a church, and in the past, working with religious organizations, there's a tendency to have divergent objectives and often delay decision making. Do you have any best practices on working with religious organizations that may have a lot of key stakeholders that are opining on the decisions throughout the process?
Do you want me to go in, David?
And tell the
Dean,
truth. Tell the truth, Dean.
Dean, we'll give you the 45-second run on that, so we'll go to the next film. That's actually a good tee up,
It
even for
is.
John and Nolan. I'll flag for them in the context of these properties specifically, but that's also a great general question Genevieve asked. So yeah, Dean, please go ahead.
I do have some experience in that regard, and I think the reason I mentioned early on as one of my first points to get clear on objectives up front. I think that's part of what needs to happen with that leadership cadre within a church or religious organization to make sure everybody's on the same page and you identify the objective and maybe have one point of contact from the development side to the church and make sure you're clear before you jump into the water on what the objectives are and who's going to make the decision and how that decision making process is going to happen in a timely and efficient manner so that you're not wasting your time and resources or the church is not wasting their time and resources. And you can sort of use the fact that as you go out to the public and the private markets for resources to make the development happen and move things forward, you're going to need that decision making and clear objectives in mind before you start to put pen to paper or start to cut checks to move things forward. But that can be very challenging. I've learned that from experience, and I think those experiences with certain organizations such as Enterprise and BCL can be used as sort of a pathway forward for additional work going forward. And they can use those experiences to sort of help guide organizations that may not be that great at decision making to sort of beat them into shape because that needs to happen up front. And that's a real issue. And I would say address that head on. Make that the first thing you address and don't be shy about it. And
Dean,
respectful, obviously, always, but
yeah.
don't be shy about that because that can waste a lot of time and energy and resources.
Great put, Dean. Thank you for that. Thanks, Genevieve, for that question. Really appreciate that, and that'll be relevant. I think even as we turn over to our next panel with Nolan and John. So, gentlemen, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I wanted to pick up on the point that was raised at the end of your panel, and that is that these buildings were built for the community, and there is a relationship. The buildings are in a relationship with the community, and it's the pastors at the seated parishes who are the more or less the final decision maker on what happens with these properties. John and I are facilitators, we are resources, we help them with the real estate transaction process, but really at the onset, it's ultimately what does the pastor of that individual parish want to see happen with that building as it's no longer being used as a church or a school building. They have the biggest voice in who the buyer or the readaptive user of that property will be. So with that, I'll just go ahead and jump in. If you could, I believe it's Tiana, you're helping me with these different slides. I believe you have a map you're going to bring up of the different parishes. So this is a map, obviously, of Baltimore City and a little bit of Baltimore County. Each one of the yellow dots that you see on this map represent one of the properties that we're going to do a little bit deeper dive in today. And as we go through each one of the properties, I'll be able to provide a little bit of abstract information. I want to say that the majority of these properties are currently listed with a professional real estate broker. And we also maintain a website here on the Archdiocese of Baltimore website, which we have consolidated all the listing agreements from the individual brokers. So there is a single page that you can go to. I provided that link to that web page to Enterprise and Homes for, and they can provide that link to you. You can also just go to the Archdiocese of Baltimore home website, and there you should be able to navigate to the available properties that are for sale. So if you could flip it to the next screen, then we'll bring up the first property that we have today that we want to talk about. And this is the Church of the Annunciation. It's located in East Baltimore County. It's 8.9 acre parcel of land, and it contains both a church or a sanctuary and a parish hall and a rectory building. It has a total square footage of approximately 22,700 square feet of space. And this property is one of the ones we have available, and we're willing to answer any questions about it. So we'll move on to the next one, which is Our Lady of Pompeii. This is it's north and east of the Inner Harbor in Baltimore City. It's close to Johns Hopkins Bayview campus. It has two buildings. It has a sanctuary church building that contains approximately 18,000 square feet of space. And then it has a multi-use building that contains approximately 32,000 square feet of space. That's the former Our Lady of Pompeii property. And we'll move on and go to the next one. All right, so our next one is St. Anne's property. This is in the city center. It's just to the east of 83. It's in the Barclay neighborhood. It's north of North Avenue, close to 22nd Street. It has a church and a parish office. The church contains approximately 9,100 square feet of space, and the parish office contains approximately 13,000 square feet of space. And that's St. Anne's. The next one we have is St. Cecilia's property. St. Cecilia's, let's see here, is in West Baltimore City. It's in the Walbrook neighborhood near the Gwynn Falls. It has two buildings with it. It has a sanctuary and a rectory. And there's also a small parking lot that goes with this property right on the other side of Hilton Street. And the rectory contains approximately 5,000 square feet of space, and the sanctuary has roughly 6,000 square feet of space in the main sanctuary, and then it has a parish hall underneath that also contains approximately 6,000 square feet of space, and that's St. Cecilia's. We'll go to the next one, which is St. Clair's, which is in Baltimore County, just to the east of the city. This is a 10.7 acre parcel of land. It has a large church and school building that are actually combined, containing approximately 50,000 square feet of space. And then it has a parish office and a rectory building that contains a little over 8,000 square feet of space. This is in the Essex community, and that's our St. Clair's property. We'll go to the next one, which is St. Dominic's. It's in Northeast Baltimore City. It's in the Hamilton neighborhood. It contains a half acre of property. It has three buildings on the property. It has a church, which has 14,000 square feet of space, has a rectory that has approximately 5,000 square feet of space, and then it has a parish center with 11,000 square feet of space. And that's our St. Dominic's property. Moving on to the next one. All right, the next one up is St. Edward's. It's in the Walbrook Fulton community in West Baltimore City. This is directly across from what will be opening up in March, which is going to be the Catholic Charities new intergenerational center. This property contains 3 buildings. It has a church of approximately 10,000 square feet, a rectory with 5,000 square feet, and a school building that has 32,000 square feet. The parcel of land is approximately 0.8 acres. And we'll move on. That's St. Edward's. The next one up is St. Mary's of Assumption. This is in North Baltimore City. It's in the Beaumont Park neighborhood. This is located between Cathedral Mary Queen and St. Matthew's. It has a church and rectory building that contain roughly 33,000 square feet of space. And that's St. Mary's the Assumption. Next one up is we'll move on, is St. Rosa Lima. This is to the south in Baltimore City. This is in the Brooklyn neighborhood. It has a church and a rectory. The church contains 11,000 square feet of space, and a rectory that contains 5,000 square feet of space. This is on a 0.9 acre parcel of land. And that's St. Rosa Lima. Moving on. St. Thomas More is in northeast Baltimore City near the Perrin Parkway Shopping Center. It's just below the Baltimore County line. It's a large church school building that has 66,000 square feet of space in the church school building. It also has a parish center with 5,500 square feet of space, and it has a small parking garage that contains approximately 1,500 square feet of space. And all of this is on 1.7 acres of land. And that's St. Thomas More. And we'll go to the next one, which is St. Wenceslaus. This one is it's in East Baltimore City. It's near Johns Hopkins. This has a church and a rectory building that contains approximately 23,000 square feet of space. I want to say this is one of the few properties that is not yet on the market, so you wouldn't find that one yet on our website. It has roughly 0.4 acres of land that go along with this property. And that's St. Wenceslaus. Next one we'll move on, is St. William of York. This is in West Baltimore City near the Gwenfield Falls Park. It has a church, a school, and a rectory that come with it, containing approximately 45,000 square feet of space. And that's on a 1.5 acre parcel of land. And that's St. William of York. And then we come next to Transfiguration, which is in West Baltimore City. It's in close proximity to the M&T Stadium. It has a church, a rectory, and a school on approximately 1 acre of land. The church contains 11,500 square feet of space. The rectory, 5,000 square feet of space, and there's a 3-story school building with 13,000 square feet of space. And that's Transfiguration Church. And then the last one we have up is it's next to an operating church. The parish continues to operate, but adjacent to the church is 2 school buildings that are available. And this is St. Francis Xavier. These 2 school buildings contain approximately 42,000 square feet of space, and they have 1 acre of land. And again, St. Francis Xavier is a vibrant operating Catholic church. It just has these 2 school buildings that are available for redevelopment. And that is the end of our slides. But I also wanted to just talk about one other property that is not yet on our website that will be going up in the next few days. and that is the Shrine of the Sacred Heart of Mount Washington. It's in the Mount Washington community. It contains a church with 7,800 square feet of space, a rectory with 5,000 square feet of space, and a school building with 24,000 square feet of space. That particular property will have more information available, and that'll be up on our website soon. So those are our properties that we have that we would like to see put back into use for the benefit of the community. Again, it's the pastors at each of the individual locations. We're facilitators. We help them engage the development community. We help them with appraisals. We help them with the contracts. And that kind of concludes our overview of Archdiocesan properties that we're trying to showcase and help developers with those properties. And we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have this afternoon. I might. So, Courtney or Patrick, are there any questions from anyone that I can answer?
Yes, I see a couple hands raised. So we'll go to Carmelita first and then to Patrick Stewart.
How do you see the questions? Are they going to talk?
Oh, hi. Well, hopefully you can see me. Hi.
Okay.
How are you? And we normally just, well, at least for me, I raise my hand if there's no Q&A. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. This has been a wonderful and valuable use of time. This has been the first time I've been able to attend live, so I'm very excited. And it really is a lot to take in, but I think it's just been a wonderful revelation for myself. My question is kind of a couple, but it goes back to something that actually Patrick said earlier when he was just kind of talking about the various project examples. Because I think in the way my brain works is that I kind of see everything as a huge ecosystem, and then you kind of, delineate down to the infinitesimal point of it all. But I was curious to understand, he made a comment about the project he showed us in Boston having some controversy around it. And especially with mission driven work, that's another component. I know when Watchin was talking about all the technical assistance and things that's available, that's a piece that also has to be considered, the buy in from those constituents, because something that is mission driven should have them in mind from the beginning. So I was just curious what that controversy looked like, or what that pushback may have looked like as we think about what partnerships and things should entail, especially for developers when they're thinking about building out the dream team. So thank you, Patrick. If you could just kind of give a little clarification on that, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks, Carmelita. I think at least with that example in Boston, the controversy was around turning the former church into basically luxury condos. It was something that at least some of the former parishioners were upset about. I think the factors around housing cost in Boston, housing affordability, lack of affordability in Boston helped drive that. I know we could probably point to several of kind of church conversion examples that have created some type of controversy over its use. I know the Archdiocese has put some measures in place to kind of say what they would consider to be an inappropriate use of former church space to help resolve some of that. But I think your point around community buy-in is a way to resolve that or proactively avoid it.
Thanks, Patrick. We'll go to the other Patrick, Patrick Stewart, for the next question.
Thanks, appreciate it. I'll try to keep it brief. First of all, Patrick Stewart, I'm with Penrose. We're an affordable housing, primarily affordable housing developer, manager, owner, active in Baltimore for 20, 25 years, and have a little bit of experience working with churches in advancing affordable housing. So I really just appreciate the conversation, appreciate the information that's being shared. My question, I guess, is anything, Nolan, that you can share about the process and what the, I guess, criteria are for evaluating offers for affordable housing developers. It's only getting harder. Dean, I think, alluded to some of it, and we all know the challenges. Oftentimes, if not all the time, affordable housing is going to be challenged in terms of the ability of a project to support anything like a market rate sort of acquisition price. So I'm just wondering what you could share about what the Archdiocese's goals are in terms of disposing the properties, what other evaluation criteria might play in, and things like that.
So that's a great question. So first and foremost, when we receive any offers or any inquires, we we take that information again and we share it with the pastor of the parish who controls that asset, because that pastor, he has two lay corporators that he needs to engage with who help him make the final determination. So development is not our core business, Patrick. So one of the challenges, because we've done several affordable housing development reconversion projects. One of the biggest challenges we face is just trying to figure out the carrying cost, because the carrying cost for the asset, it takes 2 or 3 years from concept all the way through substantial completion. And it's the navigation of that carrying cost that is often the most difficult part of the whole opportunity. And I would also say that as far as the economics go, if we get a offer on a particular asset and it's below the appraised value and it's for a use that would benefit the community, if the developer or the partner wants to help again with that carrying cost, we would certainly look at a reduced number off of the appraised value if someone can help us with that, transitioning that project into the future. That's just the best I can explain it. It's just getting away from having a building that's sitting there vacant, if you will, for several years. That's difficult to navigate, and we want to work with a partner who's willing to understand that, and we share that back with the pastor to make the final decision. But we often do that.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Thanks. We'll go to Rosa next for her question.
Hi, good afternoon. First and foremost, thank you so much for this presentation. This has been amazing. I am Rosa Strata. I'm the executive director for St. Mary's Communities. We are a nonprofit based in Northern Virginia that has been in existence for 55 years doing affordable housing. We were founded actually by a Catholic priest. And incidentally, fun fact, I had worked very closely with Father Richard Lawrence from St. Vincent de Paul's parish on the redevelopment of the nearby neighborhood there for a couple of years when I was working in Baltimore. My question is sort of a piggyback off what Patrick Stewart had asked, and it goes back to the goals of uh, the parish and the archdiocese. Are all of these properties slated for complete redevelopment, or is there a desire to keep any of those structures in place or to redevelop anything specific other than potentially affordable housing? Has that been discerned yet at this point?
So the answer is we do have, just using St. Francis of Xavier as an example, it's a operating parish. It has school buildings that are adjacent to it. It's sort of contiguous. Um, and so the parish is going to continue to operate, Rosa. We're just trying to find a partner who's willing to take, 44,000 square feet of school building and hopefully convert it into affordable housing, or perhaps a charter school or something that would be again used by the broader community. And there was a second part of your question, Rosa, that
I'd say that for the most part, other than what Nolan just used as an example, the other parishes, we're looking to sell the property in whole. We're not looking to go in and subdivide any of the existing buildings. So if that's your question, is would we just sell the school building or just sell the church? The answer is what we're promoting right now is that no, we're looking to to monetize the whole asset.
So with the exception of Saint Xavier, the idea and concept would be that the parishes would no longer continue the mission as a parish, and it would be completely sold and redeveloped, except
Yeah,
with the exception of Saint Xavier.
Yes.
yeah, because the parish has been merged. The merger process has been completed for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So the pastors have brought the disparate communities together and tried to, formalize a new parish community out of, two or three that have merged. And so that those properties are available for redevelopment.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Appreciate it.
All right, we have a couple questions in the chat I want to make sure we get to. And Jordan, I see your hand raised as well. The first question in the chat is from David San. If a property includes multiple buildings, must you purchase all the buildings or can you single out individual buildings to purchase?
We would, right now, it is our strategy not to subdivide the property. For the properties that we've went over today, the majority of them, 13 out of 14, we are trying to monetize or sell the entire property without a subdivision.
Okay. Thank you. And then another question from Dan Pontius. Who would the pastor of the parish be since the church is now closed? I'm not sure which.
So that's a good question. So what has happened, when you had two or three or even four or five parishes come together, one pastor is named canonically as the head of the merged parishes. So it's the pastor of the merged parish who still is the decision maker for these campuses that are currently not being used outside of weddings, baptisms, and funerals. So the pastor is the first line of decision making.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jordan, we'll go to you next.
Oh, thank you. Like others, I'd like to thank everyone for their time today, the commitment to doing this work and their leadership. My name is Jordan Exantis. I'm an urban planner, also a lecturer at University of Maryland, and really curious in this topic because last semester I had the opportunity to teach a urban planning studio, the topic of which was reimagining vacant and underutilized religious properties in Maryland. And we had the opportunity to work with enterprise partners to support three religious communities in Prince George's County to help them on, better demystify the development process and understanding their specific cases and helping them move towards some redevelopment solutions. And really, I'm here to learn, but also very curious about Baltimore. We learned a lot about the broader context of the challenges that churches and other religious facilities face when trying to maintain, often struggling facilities with limited resources, declining attendance, and all those kind of issues that frame what really seems to be a broader issue that's impacting the U.S. in general. And so, just really curious about hearing your perspective on what's happening in Baltimore. What kind of involvement you've seen from various partners that may help to kind of attack these issues from a different angle, and if there would be interest in working with, an entity like ours in the future to kind of help support some of the work that's going on. And just for me personally, as a planner, I see this work as really important because a lot of the churches that we've worked with and other case studies that we've seen, it's really mission-driven work with an emphasis on supportive housing or affordable housing and things that you don't see in the traditional market. And so we're really eager to kind of bring that work to our students and expose them to that because it's something that we value deeply. And so just want to put that out there and hear your response.
Well, I think the best response might come from like Dean Harrison on that specific question. I will just say though that, the Catholic Church outside of Baltimore City continues to grow and it's very, very vibrant. We see a lot of activity outside of the Baltimore City proper, where people, we have increased enrollment, we have increased participation at churches. It's in the city where there's a broader context of just trying to stabilize the decline and maintain what we have and then begin to rebuild and turn it around. And we're willing, Jordan, to talk to you or your groups, and if there's a specific property that you want to look at or partner with or showcase, I'd be glad to do a one-off with you and see how we could work together. But if Dean or Jordan wanted to provide a little bit more context about the broader question you raised, I would flip it off to them.
Thank you.
Well, I have to say, Jordan, I'm driving, so I'll just sort of jump in as best I can. But I think I mentioned earlier that it's important to realize that if you're going to jump into this work, from my personal perspective, it is important that you have a mission alignment and sort of come from a place that's not purely profit driven. And I think just from my own experience, I've seen some of the younger generation has a different perspective sometimes on development. So I would encourage you and your students and folks of your generation to sort of bring that passion to this development space and jump in where you see fit. I would say, as I mentioned earlier, I think that there are folks within the city, within the state, that would support your efforts to reimagine a lot of these spaces. And I think Watson brought it up, and I think she was right on point with one of the key points of getting clarity and sort of alignment with community-based organizations that are around these facilities and make sure that you are in line with their vision and can figure out ways to work together. So that would be my thought, but certainly want to encourage passion from the younger generation to reimagine these spaces and transform them in the right spirit.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dean. We just have a few minutes left here, and I want to make sure we can get to as many questions as possible. So Imani has a question. Affordable housing has been mentioned as a reuse several times in this presentation. Is the goal to only sell properties to developers interested in developing affordable housing? And if so, was this decision made based on community input or just the Archdiocese team?
We have sold properties. Churches have we've sold them to charter schools where they're readaptively using the churches into auditoriums and lecture halls, community centers. So it's not exclusive to affordable housing. No, it would look at, again, any use that benefits the broader community.
Mhm. Thanks, Nolan. And we'll take one more from Claire. What role, if any, does permanent supportive housing play in these faith-based redevelopment projects? Oh, looks like you're on mute, Nolan.
What role, if any, does permanent supportive housing play? Well, again, we we understand that affordable housing in Baltimore City is a high priority, and as a result of that, we partnered numerous times with affordable housing developers. Catholic Charities has done a lot of affordable housing development with us. It's one of the priorities. It's a need that we understand is important for the people who live in Baltimore City, and we do what we can to support it.
Absolutely. Alrighty, well, with that, we will wrap things up. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today. Nolan, if you could actually drop your contact information, if you're comfortable with doing that. We had some requests from participants to be able to get in touch with you. So if you could drop that in the chat, that would be great. And we will wrap up. I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Thomas.
Hey, real quick, this is David. Nolan, would it help if I cut and pasted your contact info in the chat for you? I saw a look. I saw a look that I recognized.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do
I
that,
will
Dave.
do that, sir. I
All right.
recognize that look. Yes.
Thanks, David. Alrighty, Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you to everyone for joining today's meeting. My name is Thomas Garda. I'm the program manager here at Housing Ann. I'd like to thank all our speakers and guests for their insight and opportunities that they provided. I want to invite you all to respond to our program survey using the QR code on the screen. That would be very helpful to us. And once you complete the survey, you should also receive the recording and the slides from today's event. And if you were interested in today's session, we have a faith-based development program coming up on March 26th, which will take place in Washington, D.C. Lastly, if you haven't already, please save the date for our annual meeting and housing expo coming up on May 13th at the Omni Shoreham Hotel in DC. And check out our program calendar for other events that may be of interest. Thank you again to everyone for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.